As of the filming of this video, 5,380,571. That's the average annual mature office unit volume of the franchise company that we're going to be interviewing today. Many locations, that's the average. Many locations are even higher than that. And that's actually, if you follow the channel, you'll know that's actually higher than a McDonald's average annual unit volume with a lower investment, less than 1/10 of the cost. So you're going to want to stay tuned for this interview. With over 850 franchisees in their system, the company is part of a $665 billion industry. And perhaps most importantly, the company boasts a 99% franchisee satisfaction rating. But also very important, the company looks for a very specific set of skills and personality type in an owner. We're going to cover what that is and a whole lot more. So what can I say? We like them. We've worked with them for almost 15 years now. We've watched franchise owners build some really big businesses with the help and support of this company. And today, Kevin Kohler from Franchise Inspectors is speaking with Melissa Davis, VP of Franchising at Express Employment Professionals.
Melissa, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the channel. Excited to dive into Express. Really interested in diving into the Item 19 and the financial performance numbers. But before we get into that, can you kind of give us a general overview of what Express is, what your business model is, what kind of services you offer? If you could just kind of jump in there, that'd be great.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Melissa Davis, VP of Franchising for Express. What is Express? We are staffing. So a big behemoth industry that typically, if you're not a user of the product or the industry, you maybe are wholly unfamiliar with it, especially if you're investigating franchise ownership. But Express Employment, we're a full service staffing company. So each of our franchise locations provides staffing and recruiting services to local businesses that exist within their territory.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a certain target size of business or type of business you work with, or is it industry agnostic?
I think industry agnostic is a great way to put it. There are some caveats to that, right? Like healthcare staffing is really a world all its own. So our local franchise owners are predominantly focused on servicing local companies that are considered small, medium, and large. Think companies that have between 5 and 500 employees in their workforce. That's kind of where our focus lies in servicing the local communities.
Gotcha. Okay. In terms of franchising, why does it make sense to own a staffing franchise? You know, we get this question a lot as brokers, why wouldn't I just do that business on my own rather than franchise? So tell me more about why it makes sense as a franchise and what does Express, provide to its individual owners?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of franchising like you are.
Yeah.
And candidly, my background, my expertise is not in staffing, it's in franchising. And like many other franchise brands, one of the biggest benefits of going the route of franchise ownership is that you're walking into a trusted brand, proven systems. You're not needing to recreate the wheel. You're able to leverage your entrepreneurial skill set and your desire to be a business owner, but you're not starting from scratch, right? You've got a partner in understanding how to do it, when to do it. And Express is similar in that way, of course. The staffing industry is highly competitive. For an owner who is interested in opening up their own staffing, call it like a local staffing company,
Sure.
They oftentimes have the burden of cash flow, meaning every single week they have the burden of cutting a paycheck to the people that they're putting to work with a local client.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you go the franchise route within the staffing industry, like with Express specifically, Express headquarters, the franchisor, we cover 100% of the payroll burden for the people that are being employed through the local franchise. So we help alleviate that cash flow burden. Our owners are free to focus on the most important aspect of the business, which really is focusing on client relationships, going out and finding companies, helping job seekers find work. We want our owners focused on that. And Express headquarters steps in. We cover 100% of the payroll funding. We cover all the back office function, invoicing, receivables, workers' comp. Express headquarters takes care of all of that. So if
Gotcha.
someone were to go and open up their own staffing agency, they'd have to figure all that out on their own, which many people have and can. But the power of franchising is that you've got a partner who handles all of that for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure it allows for a faster ramp up with
Yeah.
less pressure to cover that payroll, because I've been
Yeah.
there. I've owned non-franchise businesses, I've owned franchise, it's so it is definitely a thing. Tell me more about like, so I think you have a background in other types of franchises like food and beverage
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And so
Yep.
tell me about like your experience, like why consider staffing or why consider something like a service-based opportunity like that rather than like a traditional food and beverage franchise?
Yeah, and I did come from the quick service restaurant side of the industry before joining Express, or Express is kind of considered part of the B2B service franchise side of the industry. And I something that I love most about service brands and Express specifically is that you can do a lot with very little. And what I mean by that is you can take a single franchise location, a single franchise territory, and build a monumentally successful business. And our item 19 speaks to that. And we'll circle and dive into item 19. Some other business models, franchise or non franchise, a lot of times to build that monumental portfolio, become that uber successful business owner that everyone desires to be. Sometimes that business model, whether it's a restaurant or elsewhere, you have to have multiple locations. Or if you're in like a retail space, sometimes to maximize that business, you've got to expand square footage. But with the B2B service brand, it's a lot of vertical growth, right? Sky's the limit. There's no market cap. And so you can stay in the same brick and mortar location. You maybe grow your internal headcount a bit to service the growing clientele, but you can do a lot with very little when we're talking service industry brands and Express. Most of our franchise owners, the vast majority, are single unit location owners. We
Interesting.
don't even award multi unit ownership because we've proven across the 42 years that we've been around that you can do a lot with very little and build a very successful business with just a single location.
That's super cool. Yeah, I mean, we have the same conversation daily with people. It's like these type of businesses are much easier to scale, and you can scale
Yeah.
them within, one or two territories, often far greater than you can with having two or three brick and mortar locations. So, tell me about like who are you looking for? And I know like everybody kind of gives a generic answer, but like specifically, like what type of candidate will do really well in Express? Like, what are the qualities you need them to have to be successful?
Yeah. I actually have a very direct answer to that
Okay.
question.
Yeah, good.
As much as we're a staffing company, we really are a sales organization.
Yeah.
And so someone who's got a background in sales, very comfortable with sales. And when I say sales, I'm talking outside sales. I'm talking someone who's got that kind of hunter mentality. They don't like sitting at a desk. They want to be outside in the community, shaking hands, kissing babies, pulling on door handles. The thought of cold calling doesn't deter them. It takes that kind of like background skill set DNA for someone to be able to build a really successful business in this industry because the nature of it and how competitive it can be. So we love someone with a sales background.
Got it.
Also important, one of the qualities that we look for is someone who has led and managed teams because of equal importance to like the sales being driven within the business is an owner who can effectively lead, mentor, challenge their internal employees to hit those sales metrics, to hold them accountable to the strategic plan that the owner puts in. And so, leadership, managerial background, having led and managed teams is another really valuable asset that we look for in owners as well.
Okay. No, that was a very direct and good answer.
Yeah.
I want to dive in more into what the team looks like, but going
Yeah.
back to like when you do the cold calling, your networking, I've been in sales my whole life. I like working with candidates that have a sales
Mhm.
background because I do think it opens up these types of opportunities for people. So you do this, you get a meeting with a good candidate, like a good potential customer. What does that
Yeah.
meeting like look like? Are you convincing them to switch staffing providers? Are you convincing them that they need your services to help them grow their business faster? What does
Mhm.
that conversation typically look like with a new potential client?
I don't know that there's necessarily a typical conversation. The two types of conversations that you just described will exist. It, for those people who are now curious about the staffing industry, I encourage you to go and look at the players, the staffing companies, whether it's like a local mom and pop shop or a franchise like Express that exist right now in your community. When there are competitors present in a community, it actually doesn't deter us from entering that market, because when there are competitors or staffing companies that are present in that market already, it helps alleviate one of the things that you just described, which is the concept sell, needing to walk into a local business and tell them first what a staffing company is, what we do, the value of the services that we provide. Here's how we can help you, and here's why you should use our services. That will exist because you're going to be knocking on every door that you can, trying to turn over all those rocks and increase that client count as much as you can. But the other side of that coin is you're also going to be strategically targeting companies that already use someone. And so you're trying to gain that relationship. You're trying to earn that relationship away from one of your competitors. So, on one side of, call it the day-to-day sales, or the role that an owner will take, is that consultative sales approach, helping educate them on, again, the value of the services that we provide, the why. You're kind of the subject matter expert walking into a business owner's office and having these very strategic conversations with them about their turnover, their employee challenges, and how you can assist with that. And two, you're walking into a known user of the product saying, here's why you should use Express instead of whomever you're using now.
Got it. Okay. And how do you find the latter? Like, how do you find those companies that are working with a existing staffing company? Is there a systematic way to do that, or is it just
Yeah.
kind of a numbers game and hoping you reach the right people?
Yeah. It's a little bit of both. We don't want our owners out there like chasing their tails. So we're very process and system driven here at Express. One of the best ways, or maybe most creative ways, that someone can find out who is a user of the product that, right, is not your client today, but could be tomorrow, is actually the job seekers that you're interviewing. If you're interviewing a job seeker and they just came off of a contract job, who are they working for? Oh, you're working for company XYZ. They're not using Express, but now I know that they use contract labor. So now they're on my hit list. Who are they using and why? So that's a really creative strategy. Getting online and looking at available job postings, right? You might have a local company who isn't using a staffing provider right now, but they've got a job posted for a forklift driver, and that job has been posted for 43 days. And you can walk into that local company with a resume, 3 different resumes of forklift drivers that you've already met with, interviewed in person, pre-screened, and hey, I can fill this job for you today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so
Interesting.
there's a lot of strategy to that. That's part of that playbook, right? The franchisor provides to the franchisee so that you're not recreating the wheel, you're not chasing your tail. We'll teach you how to be very strategic in your approach, but there's a number of different ways that you're finding those potential clients to target.
Got it. Okay. And so let's talk about, like, you sign the franchise agreement, you go through training. What does your team need to look like day one, or the
Yeah.
first year or so, and then you know ideally you're growing really quickly, and by year 3, what does your team look like and beyond? Like, what does that structure
Yeah.
look
Yeah. So again, this kind of goes back to, you can do a lot with very little. And that included in that statement is the team. So your local employees. When you open up a brand new Express location, you're going to open up with a team of 3, one of whom is the franchise owner.
like? Okay.
So another kind of paramount quality that we look for in a franchise owner is their ability to be full-time operator of the business. We call it kind of burning boats, right? I need you fully and solely focused on Express, because again, that is the only way you're going to build a successful business.
Hmm.
So you've got the franchise owner plus only 2 full-time employees on your own payroll when you open up. And you're probably existing with that team, so 2 full-time employees throughout your first year. Typically, maybe moving into your second year is when you might look to hire your 3rd full-time employee. And commonly that next hire is outside sales rep. so that the
Got it.
owner can then transition from being that sales rep in their business to they're now building out a team, managing, leading that team. They're getting out from underneath the business to then focus on the business. But we want first the owner to live it, breathe it, be the one out there who's getting their face in front of the community, the clients, and of course, them experiencing that sales, that business development role themselves is only going to better equip them to be that leader of the team that they build later on. But you probably have those 3 full-time employees, maybe 4 full-time employees for a number of years.
Gotcha.
Our larger offices are more mature offices that have been around 10, 15, 20 years are typically the single unit owners, where you might find teams of 8, 9, 10, maybe 15 employees in the really big businesses. Again, single territory. But you're doing a lot with very little from a headcount perspective for the first several years.
Gotcha. Okay. So you can be pretty lean. I mean, you have an office
Yeah.
building, correct? Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Brick and mortar concept, typically 800 to 1200 square feet. No inventory. Again, we're a B2B service brand. So you're talking an office space because you're going to have job seekers visiting your office to interview, handing out paychecks, things like that. You're not really hosting your clients in your office space. That's where you're going to the client facility. You're going to the office to make that sale.
Gotcha.
But 800 to 1200 square feet brick and mortar office space.
Gotcha. Okay. And those 2 employees, they're recruiters, or what is their role in the business
Yeah.
early?
Yeah. So again, owner initially is going to be that business development role out there working directly with local businesses and clients. Then they're going to have who we call an employment specialist, but that's your recruiter. So they're
Okay.
focused on the job seekers and who we call your associates, the people that you put out on assignment. So they're looking at resumes, they're interviewing, they're working to backfill a database of pre-screened, ready to work individuals so that when your business development person, your sales rep has an open job order with one of your clients, you can quickly make that match.
Got it.
The
Okay.
other position full-time in the office is what we call front office coordinator. This is support, admin. They're really support. I kind of liken them to that critical role in the office or that business. They're keeping the wheels on the bus. They're making sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're supporting the sales side of the business. They're supporting the recruiting efforts. But that team of 3 is all you need for quite some time.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, salespeople tend to not be the most organized. I'm stereotyping here, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see
No,
that
you're
role.
right. Yeah.
I can see that
Yeah.
role being important in the
Yeah.
business even early on. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, well, let's talk about. I'd love to talk about the item 19 in the
Yeah.
franchise disclosure document because it's shows some really impressive numbers, especially. I believe if I remember the 2024 numbers, 2025 isn't out yet, but 2024
Yep.
numbers were showing like I think over 2 years in business or maybe over 3 years in business, it was an average of like 3.2 million in gross
Mm-hmm.
revenue. So
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, but impressive numbers when I just glanced at it this morning. So give me an overview of like what kind of potential do you see in this business year 1 and beyond, and how like you mentioned it's single territory, but like, is there a point where people can add another territory? Is that
Yeah.
necessary? Is that allowed? How do you keep scaling the business, I guess, is
Yeah.
my second question.
Yeah. So, yeah, we do. I'm biased. I know. I'll be the first one to say that, but we do have a really strong item 19. And I think we have a really comprehensive and unique item 19. So, item 19, of course, average revenue for open and operating units within the franchise that people are looking into. And it's one of the first pages people flip to when they get the FDD. For us, what makes our item 19 really unique and helpful, I think, to people who are considering ownership is we have 5 different tables of financial data in our
Mhm.
item 19. And the tables are broken out and based on a subset of offices based on how long those offices have been open.
Yeah.
So, for example, table 1 in our item 19, we're looking solely at brand new offices, startup locations, and we're looking at detail tied to year 1 and year 2. And the detail that we disclose in that table 1 is actually a month by month breakdown for the first 2 years of a brand new franchise location. And so I think one of the hurdles that a lot of people face when they look into franchise ownership is that really scary, what am I getting into? What's the startup phase? What's a ramp up look like? What are my first 1, 2, 3 years look like? And so that's why we felt it was really important to take all the averages and throw them into a month by month breakdown for the first 2 years of ownership so that people looking into Express can really actually conceptualize here's what the first 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months are going to look like. Brand new Express offices in 2024, they typically average just over $1 million in gross sales or average unit revenue. And then to your earlier point, what we call our mature offices or territories that has been open 5+ years in 2024 averaged 5.7 million in AUV. So again, that's what I mean about you can do a lot with very little with this business. To put some of those numbers into context, the average tenure of ownership for us here at Express is 12 years. And the term of our franchise agreement is 5 years. So most of our owners are renewing partnership with Express. And we have fewer than 100 multi-unit owners and close to 900 franchise locations. So again, most of our owners are single unit owners. You asked about expansion opportunities or what we call expansion multi-unit ownership opportunities. And their answer is yes, expansion opportunities exist. We do love growing within our family. We want an owner to be successful with what they've taken on initially though, right? So get into your first location, grow an incredibly successful location, and then let's talk expansion. Because expansion, right, to be able to move into multi-unit franchise ownership is so much more nuanced than I have the money to do it. We also want to look at the team around that franchise owner because you can't be in two places at once. So if you've got 2, 3, 4 franchise locations, what's the bench of talent behind you that you've grown, that you've, poured into and developed over your years of ownership so that they can be, right, the person that you expand into a second, third, fourth territory.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for the detailed answer there. I mean, and I was going to ask you, so it's a very well-established brand, close to 900 units, I believe you said. People renewing their 5-year agreements, good retention rate, all super positive things. When you go to exit, what does an exit look like for a successful owner? Is it a business you can sell? Do you sell it to other owners in the system? What does that look like for Express? Because again, if you are a newer franchise system, that wouldn't really be a relevant question, but you guys have been around for a long time. You have mature owners, very successful owners. So what does that exit process potentially look like?
Yeah, we call it succession planning. And candidly, and it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but the succession planning conversation is actually a conversation that we start even before someone has signed a franchise agreement with us. And just because we think it's really important for us to understand what that franchise owner's goals are long term. And there's no wrong answer with that, right? They could want to come in, build a uber successful business during that initial 5-year term and then sell it. And if we have line of sight to that, we can help them prepare for that. We've also talked to new owners who they're looking at this from a legacy perspective, and they want to follow suit of many of our other franchise owners that have brought in second and even now third generation owners, right? They're passing it on to their children and then their grandchildren. And so if we understand, even before someone enters into partnership with us, what their initial goals are, and of course, goals can change, but if we understand that and have line of sight to that, we can support them in exiting in a way that aligns with their goals. Being, a 40+ year brand, a lot of our development every single year is actually resale. It's healthy turnover is you're familiar, you typically will see between 8 and 12% of a franchise system turnover every single year. We haven't quite hit that threshold yet. Right now, we transact about 50 resales a year, and it's owners who've been with us typically 5, 10, 15 years, and they're looking to retire or, relocate, whatever it might be. But we have a very robust resale program. And so for people who are interested in franchise ownership, but maybe they aren't interested in a startup. They don't want to start from zero. A resale opportunity is a really great way for people to get into a brand like Express, who maybe was previously sold out in their local market. We might now have a resale opportunity that they can
Sure.
step into, and they're jump starting themselves. So yeah, we do have a lot of resale opportunities across North America.
Melissa, tell me about like the total investment to get into a new franchise for Express and what, at a high level is included in that investment.
Yeah, so initial investment for brand new Express locations starts at about 150,000. And included in that minimum investment estimate is a $40,000 initial franchise fee. And we do offer a 50% discount on that fee for veterans. We've also included in that $150,000 investment all the estimated costs tied to getting the physical office space up and running. So furniture, desk chairs, computer, signage, everything that a new owner would need to actually open up the doors for business is included in that. And then we've also included working capital estimates for the first 9 months of operation, because it's important to us that new owners coming in have that cash
Sure.
offhand set to the side so they can cover themselves during that initial ramp up period. So we've built 9 months of estimated working capital into that initial investment as well.
Got it. Okay. And it's impressive because you look at the $150,000 investment to get to the potential revenues that are disclosed in the item 19. It's we look at investment to potential sales ratio. And so
Mm-hmm.
like that's one of the more impressive ones out of, a lot of franchises and any different industry that we look at. Because you see that a lot in service-based businesses that people know nothing about. Like you're a huge franchise. I bet a lot of people that we work with don't even know about
Yeah.
Express. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But when you look at the investment of 150,000 to get to, potential multiple million in gross sales, it's super impressive. And like you mentioned before, you can do that out of one office location. So your
Mm-hmm.
overhead is quite a bit lower than like, okay, I'm going to go scale another food and beverage franchise that's
Mm-hmm.
a whole
Yep.
big development and build out and blah blah blah.
Yep.
So okay, very cool. So in the industry in general and staffing, what are some of the trends you're seeing now with like new technology and other things? And do you see more businesses gravitating towards using like outsource staffing companies
Mm-hmm.
or bringing it in-house? What kind of trends are you seeing right now in the industry?
You know, we're not seeing trends of more companies using staffing or bringing it in-house,
Okay.
but that's okay with us because what's great about the staffing industry, again, and I mentioned this earlier, but for people who are unfamiliar with staffing, which is the vast majority of the population, myself included before I got into it, what's great about the staffing industry is that it's very largely recession resilient. And there is published data all over the internet that points to that. As you know, no industry, franchise or otherwise, is recession proof. If anyone hears that, run for the hills. But the staffing industry is really great because even in times of economic downturn or global pandemics, which hopefully never happen again, clients, when or companies, when these things happen, they tend to lean more on staffing companies to fill contingent or flexible labor needs, right? If we go back, and I know no one wants to rehash this, but if you go back to 2020, 21, 22, that those post-COVID years, more companies than ever were looking to use staffing companies because of the just what was happening in the world and the production, everything was kind of turned upside down. And so in the staffing industry, actually, those post COVID years, 21, 22, were the best ever. And so we're by and large, the staffing industry is recession resilient. Trends that we're seeing now in the staffing industry, you mentioned this, but largely related to technology advancements. I'll dispel the notion now that AI is replacing jobs. We're not seeing that. We're just saying that a skill set and job requirement is now that candidates need to be familiar with AI. They need to know how to use AI, but we're not seeing jobs being replaced by AI. So I want to dispel that rumor. One of our focuses here on Express is leveraging AI to make a lot of like our operating systems in a local franchise work faster, more efficiently. We're not changing what we do, but we're making how we do it more efficient through the use of technology and AI and things like that. And so that's one of our focuses. And that's a trend that we're seeing across the staffing industry as well. Another trend that we're seeing, the types of jobs that we're focused on placing here at Express are what we categorize as light industrial, which are, I think, entry, mid-level, blue-collar roles. We also place within what we call skilled trade positions, which are your blue-collar professional. And then we also focus on office service jobs, which are office-based, clerical, admin, white-collar positions as well. And what we're seeing trend-wise in the staffing industry now, and what we will continue to see over the next several years, is a large demand in that skilled trade sector. We're seeing very few people in the upcoming workforce having that skilled trade experience. And so there's a big demand in the market for it. And our job in the staffing industry is to make sure that we have that supply to meet that demand.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that trend is only going to continue to grow because I don't think AI is going to disrupt any type of like home improvement, construction,
Mm-mm.
like those type of blue collar jobs. If anything, I think those companies are going to grow and be in even more demand. So that's interesting. When you like are an actual like client or employee of a local express company, like I'm coming to you, I'm a job seeker. What is the benefit for that job seeker to work with Express rather than like try to find something on their own or like
Yeah.
with another staffing company?
Yeah. So, one, we don't charge any amount of money or fee or anything like that to a job seeker to help them find a job.
Okay.
The purpose of what we do is to help people find employment. So, that's the only reason that we're in existence, is to help people find jobs. If you think about a job seeker's experience, right? They get online, they're looking at all these different available jobs, they're looking at the job description, they're applying, they're filling out an application, they're waiting for a call back, they go on interview one, two, three. It typically takes weeks, sometimes months for people to find a job. On average, express locations fill a job order with a client in under 48 hours.
Okay.
So we work very diligently and at length to pre-screen, interview these job seekers, and then we take this qualified candidate and we, on their behalf, go find them a place to work.
Got it. Okay.
And so a lot of times we can put these people in jobs much faster than if they were just doing it on their own. And again, we're incentivized to help them find work. And so we're really focused on helping alleviate a lot of that burden of them going out and trying to search for a job themselves, going through the interview process with a client. They can have that one-on-one relationship with that employment specialist or recruiter, the local franchise owner. So many of our owners and the local employees at an express franchise have these deeply rooted relationships with job seekers because they're following them through the life cycle of their whole career, which is great.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So do they eventually feel some sort of like loyalty to the local express
Yeah,
owner or is it
quite
yeah.
often. Yep,
Yeah.
quite often. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. You've been in franchising for a long time. You've been in a lot of different industries within
Yeah.
franchising. What would your advice be for people that are like looking into franchising right now? Like, what is your general advice? Not even just specifically for
Yeah.
staffing, but just in general, like what advice would you
Yeah.
offer our viewer?
My first piece of advice is to really sit down and have an objective conversation with yourself about, one, where your skills lie, and two, where your passions lie.
Hmm.
And I think early on, as you're investigating all these different franchises, because there's 4,000 of them out there in North America alone, is understanding too, are you looking for something that you can be full time in? Like you're leaving your corporate 9 to 5, you want to be a business owner and this is what you do every day? Or are you looking for like a side gig, semi absentee? Or are you looking for something wholly hands off? Because I think answering those three things first will really help narrow that focus for the brands that align with, again, your passion, your skill set, and the time commitment that you're
Sure.
looking to invest.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for taking time to chat with us. If you are interested in learning more about Express or understanding if there are any opportunities available in your market, please click on the link and we can do some research for you. We'll reach out to Melissa and we can let you know what's available. But thank you again. Appreciate your time. And
Thank you.
yep, thank you.